Hello, everyone. Dan Hendy here from Pennsylvania Rec and Park Society. Thanks for coming to our Urban Recreation Roundtable. I'm here with Nikki Tusher, who's also from our training department, and she'll rename herself when she's good and ready. And BK, who is now our Maintenance Institute leader. So we're excited to have everyone here. Hi, Camilla, how are you?
Good. Nice to see everybody.
Good. And I just want to remind everybody, when you come into the meeting, you're automatically on mute. To get out of mute and to speak, all you need to do is go to the bottom left corner of your screen and click on the microphone icon, and you can unmute yourself. Also, a little trick I learned is that if your pointer is left on your one screen with the Zoom video, you can just press spacebar every time you want to talk, and it'll unmute you and mute you automatically. So that's kind of a neat trick, but your pointer has to be on the screen that you're working on. Like we do in every roundtable, we'd really appreciate it if you go ahead and put your email address into the chat box. That way we know who's here. We can also send out any kind of information that anyone gathers or wants when you do that. We'll also send you a copy of this recording as we record all our roundtables, and we'll also send you a modified chat box. So Nikki and I take them and we make them all pretty and then send them out to everybody so that you can sort of kind of follow along with the chats that go on. So that's it. That's the stage, so to say. I asked Camilla Riviera Tinsley to be on. She's from the Pittsburgh area. She's with Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, and I asked her to help me, facilitate this discussion because, and I've also asked Heather DJ from Lancaster to be on this call, and Bill Salvador from Philadelphia area, so that they can we cover the major urban areas in the state, or some of the major urban areas in the state going forward, because we know that there's unique situations for people who work in urban environments. I do have a poll question I'd like to ask to start off. And Nikki, since you were the last host on, you're going to have to launch that first poll. So as that poll goes out to you, you'll notice that we're sort of, the way I see it, or the way I think it's going, is we're sort of at crunch time. Many areas have already decided what they're going to do for the summer, but some are still holding out hope that they can open up daycare, or summer camps, and we want to get a feel of what we're doing here as a group. I see some folks have already entered into the chat box, and that's great. If you're shy about talking on air, you can also enter any kind of comment or question that you have in the chat box, and either Nikki or myself or BK will pick up on that and make sure that or at least do our best to make sure that it gets answered during this Urban Parks and Rec. So, Camilla, how's it going over in Pittsburgh? It looks sunny.
It's a beautiful day. I feel so good because now it's finally warm, and much like Pittsburgh always does, you go straight from having your heater on to having your air conditioning. So I'm going to enjoy this brief window of nice warmth and know that soon I'll have my air conditioning on.
That's true. And considering last week it was snowing here on Saturday, that was really something. So what's going on with Pittsburgh Parks? What can you fill us in on?
Sure. So today we just had some key messaging from the city of Pittsburgh and our mayor. And so whether we wanted to have camp or not, via the city of Pittsburgh, there will be no city parks summer camps. So I work for the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy. We're a nonprofit partner of the city of Pittsburgh. So we run complementary programming. And so following the city's lead, we will not be running summer camp. We had already made that decision that we wouldn't, based on doing some cost benefit analyses. When we took a look at all of the CDC guidelines, thinking about how many adults we would have to have like that child-adult ratio. It just was not going to work out for us. And then trying to figure out how we best manage, being outside is great, but how do you best manage younger kids coming in and out of your facility? And just all of those regulations were really hard for us. So we're actually pivoting right now, and we are planning to do programs across the city of Pittsburgh, pending some funding. We have an ask out, and hopefully we'll get that money. And if we do, we're going to coordinate with our city parks, food drop-off centers to distribute themed summer camp kits so that kids and families can have these kits. We will have complimentary directions and videos that are going to be on our Parks on the Go webpage. And so that's our mobile parks programming webpage. So folks can get that. And then we're also going to have our education team dispersed across the city. We will meet up with kids and youth and family, and we will demonstrate and actually how to, use those kits with folks. For 2-hour pop-ups. So we want to have that regular engagement. We want to make sure that we are servicing people who really need it the most. And so from what we've ascertained, there's going to be a lot of pressure, particularly on older adults and other family members who are called on to watch the children this summer while their parents probably go back to work. So we are really working to try to support that particular population.
So what can you tell us what's in those kits a little bit?
I wish I could. They are being formulated as we speak. I mean, we've had a heck of a time trying to plan for what if we have summer camp? What if we don't have summer camp? What if we do this? What if we do that? And so really the kits right now, we have one that's we have a planning list of what could go in those kits. So it's like, there's one about insects. You get a bug box, you get a little guide, you get a bug bingo game, and like some other things to do. And then we would set up in the parks to play those games with parents and families. So we would demonstrate what they'd want to see. As it comes online, I'm happy to share what we create with everybody.
Oh, that would be awesome. So Pittsburgh has stopped camps. How about the pools? I guess they're...
No city pools. They're still deciding on what to do with rec centers and senior centers. So I can't speak for the city about, which way they'll go. They might do some limited engagement. They're definitely doing the food distribution at those rec centers, but the rec centers themselves are not open for programming.
Thank you. Hi, Heather.
Hi there, how are you?
Good. So can you give us the view from Lancaster and what you guys are doing with your summer programs or summer camps? And
Yeah, well, we're in the same boat as many as we're still deciding. I pretty much put a deadline on ourselves for the end of the month to make a final decision on everything, but we probably very likely aren't holding our summer wading pool program because it seems like the guidance that came out from the CDC yesterday that splash pads are still probably not recommended. Still waiting to decide on our pool and still waiting to decide on our summer camps. For our senior programs, we're doing food distribution and we're doing a number of different virtual programs, including virtual mahjong lessons and some virtual yoga for our seniors. But our big question, the summer programs, we're just still waiting to get some more information on those.
okay. Does anybody else want to report out what they're doing? And if you do, please tell us what area you're from or what municipality. I'd be interested in hear what your plans are.
I guess I will, Dan. I'm John Frederick. I just started just about a year ago in Bellwood Borough and Antis Township. I actually work for Antis Township north of Altoona. And we have a swimming pool. It's pretty popular for a small, relatively small suburban community. And we're, as so many people said, we're kind of trying to decide what to do. And I think, we're going to kind of take the lead from what the Department of Health ends up saying and so forth. We happen to have not far from us, about 5-6 miles, Del Grosso's water park, and they've already decided that they're not going to open because they fear the risk is too great to make the big investment to open that they need to make and get all their lifeguards trained and that sort of thing. And that kind of may have some impact on what we do, because we feel like a small community pool is better able to deal with the social distancing issues and so forth that they are afraid they can't deal with people standing in line waiting to go down water slides. So, that's going to figure into our, decision, I suppose. In a weird sort of way, we've actually looked at this as a little bit of an opportunity, because we got some DCNR money to do a big improvement to our community park, which is the pool is part of. And so a portion of that work was to redo our parking area and some related landscaping and that sort of thing. So with park use down and that sort of thing, although it really isn't down, especially on our trail and so forth. But with with not as many cars in the parking lot, so to speak, we think this is a good opportunity to actually do the work, because our public works crew is going to do a bunch of the demo work, especially in order to save some money and make our grant dollars go further. We also have, I wanted a quick note, we also are trying to build on some partnerships with our public library, which is just across the railroad tracks from the park. And they're doing some backpack programs, and we're trying to help with some of those backpack programs where we give some, the backpack includes things, for example, on local habitats and wildlife and geography and geology and things like that. And that's kind of in the formulation stages, but we're hoping that maybe that takes off a little bit and it's something that people can do on their own, but that we cooperatively can help them, coordinate and facilitate.
And John, I wonder, do you worry about your pool? Like if you open your pool, do you worry about it being overrun since, other areas are like such as Del Grosso are closing?
No, yeah. Yeah, we've had some conversation on that, but it's certainly a factor that we need to keep in mind. And I do think that the Hollidaysburg, actually it's the Clark County Regional YMCA actually manages the day-to-day operations of the pool for us, because they have good expertise at that and been doing it in their own facilities for years, and we found them to be a good partner. And they obviously are going to have to figure out how to survive in this new world, and working on the social distancing issues and all that kind of business. So I think that's just going to be part and parcel. Whatever's done, there's going to have to be a plan. And I would hope that the Department of Health would give some guidance on that too, that there would be a plan on how to, how to make that happen safely and so forth. I mean, I guess the good news is everybody has said from the beginning that COVID-19 can't survive in chlorinated water. So, I guess that's a good thing.
Rich Pfeiffer, it looks like you were about to tell us about your place.
Well, I'm with East Bradford Township on the outskirts of Westchester here in Chester County, and I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation. We are still under the red zone, and I anticipate that southeastern PA down in our region will probably be the last in the state that goes down to yellow and then eventually to green. What I'm sort of grappling with at the moment, or kind of envisioning, is obviously under red, all of our sport courts are closed. Our basketball courts are extremely popular, especially around summertime. And based on my review of the PRPS sort of published guidelines, I guess that falls under the athletics category. And of course, our tennis courts are another popular pursuit in the summertime. And if my reading is correct, the guidelines seem to recommend that nothing would be kind of opening until we reach green status, which is really unknown at this point, especially for our sector of the state. I'm just wondering to hear from everyone else as to particularly those sort of pickup activities, pickup basketball. We get a lot of kind of youth and teens and university students from Westchester coming out to the outskirts here to play that sort of stuff in the summer, as well as like pickup soccer games on the soccer fields. Does anyone have any additional insights on whether or not, we are recommending closing all that stuff off until the green status, or is there going to be some way, maybe under yellow, we could, singles tennis, for example? Is that something where there's going to be an exception potentially once we hit yellow, or maybe is that come down to the, I guess, municipal level of decision making, but will the state end up putting out like a more detailed kind of actual sport by sport recommendation list, do you think, or does anyone have insights on that?
I just have some feedback. NRPA, if you're a member of them, they put out a really good sport by sport recommendation. So that's of course a national level resource. I don't know what that will mean for Pennsylvania, and particularly areas like yours, Rich, that are densely populated. But it was really helpful because it said exactly that, of like, here's what you can do for tennis, here's what you can do for basketball. So I'll try and find the link and put it in the chat box for you. That'd
be great, because I haven't seen that.
Yeah, that link is on our website already. We've used that before. And we have a whole page on COVID-19 and, things you can go for. And the thing that, if I remember correctly, the thing that's good about that is it's sort of this question and answer type of guidance. Like, if you can do this, then you go here. If you can do that, if you can assure that this can happen, then you can do that. So there is some of that there, especially for the, basketball is going to be tough just because there's a lot of, although they say it's not a physical contact sport, we all know better, anyone that's played. But tennis and some other sports like that might be able to do that in the yellow. I'm not sure. Nikki, maybe you want to talk about that a little. I'm not sure.
I will say that the one thing I want to say about the grid that PRPS distributed was it was just our interpretation of state and federal guidelines. So at this point, it can change at any moment. So while we don't know what Pennsylvania is going to dictate at this point in time, I would say my thought would be they're actually not going to distribute any kind of protocol per sport. So what I would do is, as Heather mentioned, those NRPA recommendations, I would go with them at this point in time. I think the one problem with a sport such as tennis is, while singles seems like a safer, sport, there's still the ball. You're still touching the ball. So there's those considerations that can be taken in. It's not a contact sport, but there is still the chance of the spread of the virus. But I think going with NRPA at this point is the best thing. Obviously, you guys are stuck in red for a while, and that's unfortunate. When you get into yellow, I would start following whatever guidelines are available at that time. Hopefully the state of Pennsylvania has some further guidance. I know PRPS has been reaching out to work, we've had a lot of contact, obviously, we always do with DCNR. We've reached out with DOH, and we are waiting to hear back from them about rescheduling our webinar from last week, but further conversations about how we can assist them with making some of these decisions. So hopefully there will be some further guidance, but if not, I think, NRPA is one of our best sources.
Well, thank you for keying me into that resource. There's been so much overload coming through emails, and I only have so much time. So that kind of got between my, I missed that one. So thank you.
And the CDC, for those, I assume many of you know, the CDC just put out some new guidelines, was it late last night, that we can get up to you. I know it'll be on our website too, and it's for summer camps, childcare, and is it businesses? Is that? But they're relevant. Some of them are relevant to what we're doing.
Yeah, I did post the link there in the chat, and it is helpful. It has a section where you can drop down on youth and adult sports, and it does give some examples, not all, but some examples there for sport by sport. So just like Nikki said and Dan said, it's general. It's not going to necessarily apply to our specific counties, but it does help give some recommendations of how you can phase opening up different programs.
Something that was a little disconcerting to me, and I wonder what you all think about this. So for Parks Conservancy, we've been doing virtual hikes and different types of digital engagement, and we're about to try to engage in the outdoors because there's been some data that's come out from a study in China saying that, you know, transmission rates when you do things outside, I think there's something like 2% of all of their tracked cases were actually transmitted in the out of doors. So that's just really good news. But one thing that's concerning my staff is that if we do engage in these kit activities, the face mask is only a recommendation now. And so we have a question about whether we can ask or demand our participants to use face masks, and wondered what your thoughts were about that.
That's a great question.
I read somewhere, and again, with so much information going around, I'm not sure if it's entirely true, but I did see if it's something related to a health reason that they're wearing it, you're not allowed to directly ask because of HIPAA. I don't know if that's true or not. I would recommend asking legal counsel about that because I'm not a lawyer, but I could imagine that that could be a bit of a challenge. Same thing with demanding. I think private businesses are able to require people to wear them when they come into the business because they have the right to refuse service. But if you're in a public park, I don't know that you can force participants to wear a face mask. But again, I wouldn't know the legality part of that, but I do know you want to be careful asking people why they're not wearing a mask because of HIPAA, because they don't have to disclose a medical issue.
I just pulled up the CDC guidelines. They're, I'm going to loosely call it an infographic. I'm not sure what, it's not really an infographic, it's the PDF they released. But it basically says promote health and hygiene practices such as washing hands and employees wearing a face cloth covering. Oh, there we go. Yep, Dan's sharing it. So I'm not seeing that it's actually talking about, and I was trying to read this quick. I'm not seeing a lot about children wearing them. With that said, if I were still running a camp, I would still suggest it personally. If I were running a camp program or even a public program, I would recommend it to my attendees. I'm not sure whether or not you can force them to do it. I would ask a solicitor, but I would highly recommend it. I know that the conversation during the summer camp roundtables have been with temperatures, and if that comes into play with HIPAA. My good friend is an HR manager with a council of governments, and I know her personal viewpoint was she didn't want to be responsible for taking temperatures and enforcing face mask policies. So I think asking your solicitor and your insurance provider might be the best thing, because I think it might be different depending on who your carriers are.
I'm sure many of your decisions are going to have to go through your insurance companies and your legal representatives in municipalities. I just don't see how they can, with so much ambiguity, it's hard to really pick a path forward, and you want to make sure that you're going in the right direction. So Heather, are you in the yellow or red right now?
That's a funny question. So I was on a 5-hour county commissioner meeting the other day to try and understand that clarification. Some select county commissioners have written to the governor to state that we would be moving into yellow today, but then several other county commissioners and municipality leaders wrote letters saying that we shouldn't do that, including the mayor of our city. So because we are so closely aligned with our city, we're going to follow what they say. I also wrote an email to the commissioners saying that I thought that their decision was short-sighted because anyone that pursues childcare with state licensure, you will not be able to find a childcare provider who is licensed through the state who will go against the state and open. So even if they try to open the state, there's no childcare because none of us would do that. We'd be risking our licensure. So we're in red as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, very good. It's nice to be in the middle of those things, huh?
Yeah, it really puts a lot of stress on, agencies like ours that are just trying to serve our community, but now we're caught between our local and our state government, and we rely on both of those for funding. So it puts us in a bit of a tricky spot, but we're just going to continue to align with the state because that's what we have to do with the way that we're licensed.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to go just a little bit deeper on parks and your facilities out there. And, I know they're probably being used when they shouldn't be used. People find ways to get on things and use facilities. And, you have to remove basketball hoops before those courts are actually not used. And fences that just mean it's a little harder to get into things, that's all. But I also know that some of you deal with a homeless population, and I was wondering, how we're addressing those kinds of issues with people who don't have anywhere else to go and may use parks, and how are we helping them or assisting them to how are those things going with those populations? Is it an issue?
At one of the Parks Conservancy sites, at our Shenley Plaza, we have a large tent. It's a big sort of like community square area, and a lot of homeless people have actually been setting up camp underneath that tent because it is a covered space. And so because we are not actually the city, we can take a softer approach. So we have actually been allowing folks within reason to sleep there overnight and then sort of move them along during the day. We also, not on city park property, but close to Shenley Plaza, we put up a porta-john early on so that folks could be able to go to the bathroom. And we were lobbying for a wash station, but we could not get that. I know in another part of the city close to, in the north side, across from another park that we have, there is a nonprofit that deals with the homeless population, and they set up some wash stations and things. So I think it's been easier for us because we're not actually the city to be able to maneuver and provide those services, but there hasn't been a real concerted effort from the city of Pittsburgh that I can see to sort of manage that in parks.
Yeah, we've had the same thing here in Lancaster. We were able to set up portable toilets and wash stations in the parks for the homeless community to use. So we were fortunate to be able to provide those things in, I think, 6 of our parks downtown.
Are they being well used?
They are, yeah. I think the community appreciates them.
Okay.
Yeah, putting those up actually stopped. We were having a problem with people in our more centrally located parks still using the bathroom by the locked bathrooms. So it has helped with sanitation overall.
Oh, good. I noticed that John Hebrick is on. And I was wondering, John, I know you signed in from Allentown, and I was wondering how things are going over there. If you're actually online and listening, can you give us a little breakdown? Well, maybe not. All right.
Dan, if you want, I can give you the poll results.
Yeah, sure.
The first question of the poll is, are you planning on having your summer camps? 54% are still deciding. 31% said no, they're all canceled, and 15% said limited weeks and or number of participants, which goes along with what we've seen in a lot of our roundtable participants. The other question was, our pools or beaches will be what this summer? So 62% are still undecided. Again, I believe we're still waiting for clarification from the state on that one. And then 38% said completely closed. So we definitely, that's in line with a lot of the other feedback we're getting from our members so far this year.
Yeah, it is. And it just goes to show that, you know, everybody's coming near a drop deadline, so to say, where you're either going to get an answer from the state or you're going to have to, you know, take matters in your own hands, because you're going to either A, lose the season if you don't open early enough, or just close it and you know, and that's it, because you can't, you know, step out of the bounds and you know, you don't have anything to fall back on or any regulations. So it's sad, but I know that deadline's coming. Well, Heather, you said it was the end of the month, and I think maybe a lot of departments are like that. Like, where is your deadline, everyone? Where's your deadline where you're going to have to say either I know something by then or we're closing?
And for us, that's a deadline I've just imposed myself. It's arbitrary, but it's just the stress, I think, for all of my staff right now, the back and forth of will we or won't we. And so I have a board meeting that last week of the month that I'm just going to propose my recommendations at that point, which I probably will make a decision that morning because of just all the back and forth we're getting. And I'll make that proposal to them during the board meeting, and I'll just basically say, here's my decision, you know, this is what I want you to support. And then I'll get that information out to the staff that day and say, here's what we're doing for the summer, guys. So that's essentially what I've been able to do at this point, is I, you know, continue to field their questions and their inquiries. I just say, you'll have a decision by the end of the month, no matter what. And then I'm just going to have to live with the decision I make. It's very tough, but I'll almost feel a little bit better actually once we at least know what we're doing. But yeah, for things like our pool, I'm really heavily leaning towards not opening the pool for the season. But at the same time, that's a tough decision to make, because then families don't have that resource. And you know, we're really close to Dutch Wonderland and Hershey Park and all of those different recreational activities here that might not be open for the summer. So families might not go on vacation. Our little tiny pool is all that they might have. But yeah, I've just kind of self-imposed a date of May 30th to finally make a decision.
I would suspect we're probably in that same time frame. I think we've already conceded that there's a possibility that we would, you know, open a little bit late, but you know, a few weeks at most, because if you start open in late June, you know, you've got all that investment in time, water, everything. And, you know, it's just sometime around the end of this month, we have to decide, as Heather said. I mean, yeah, you just can't go much later than that.
So when those decisions are made, and you may have talked about this in an earlier roundtable, have any of you had to furlough staff, or will you be furloughing staff? Obviously, bringing on seasonal staff won't happen, but have you had to furlough any of your full-time staff? I've had some friends that have been furloughed, obviously, for, you know, financial reasons, but have you had to make that tough decision?
No, we don't have much, but no, we haven't. We have a part-time park worker that does a lot of our grounds work and other things, you know, whatever, you know, other duties as may be described, as the old saying goes. And my public works director is really trying hard to make sure he does not lose him, because we have plenty of other things going on that even if stuff is closed, his his help will be really, really appreciated. So I'm optimistic that'll happen, because even though he's just there for I don't know, 10 weeks or something like that, those are 10 really helpful weeks, and he gets a lot of stuff done.
I know Bill Salvador from Philadelphia is not here, but my understanding is that Philadelphia is, they're still waiting to figure out camps, but their pools are not going to open. And spray grounds may be open with strict monitoring, and play streets will be expanded and additional activities added. But as several cities have done, meal distribution is a priority, as well as the federally funded youth employment program. So they're expanding their services to take in to help with the government meal programs, and making themselves keeping everyone busy that way also. All right, I can notice that it's about 1:49, so we've been at it for about 50 minutes. I was wondering if anyone else had some questions they'd like to ask personally about anything that's going on with them in their park system. This is your time. You got some real good minds here that can maybe answer some questions. Oh, John has answered. Allentown will not operate their 8-week summer playground program at 18 sites, and that affects 1,000 children. Too many uncertainties, restrictions, and liabilities. Also, the pools do not look good, because being in the red now, Allentown needs to find about $7 million due to lost earned income tax. No sports leagues or large basketball tournaments either. Lots of walking, that's about it. Raise your hand if you understand that part of it. There's just, everybody's losing revenue from a lot of these programs. I mean, we just talk about these programs, whether they're a go or not, but they're just gonna have financial repercussions all the way down the line. And, I was on a webinar yesterday from the NRPA that was talking about the economic repercussions, and they said, this is going to be similar to what happened in 2007, 2008 to a lot of recreation departments when the last recession came through, that there's just going to be some cuts, and you're going to have to figure out ways to get through everything. But what we can do is hope that, this is 1 year as an aberration, and by 2021, we have our act together as a country, and we're moving forward, and we got it licked, and we can go back to some semblance of the normal. So, all right, we have a couple more messages. BK has attached a document for the modular camp activity ideas. So that's, BK, you want to talk about that for a sec?
Just threw a couple of links as we were sitting here, different activity ideas, things that are, I guess, camper in a bag, if you will. So things that you could either prepare and give them to families to do at home, or just some ideas that maybe you can even just share with your community members if they're looking for ideas and they're worried about what to do.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Okay, last chance for questions, either online or on the chat box.
I was just going to add to that.
Becca, we're having a hard time.
I'm going to add to that Smith Playground, we're from Philadelphia. We're trying to work on like everyday play, like in your house.
Okay. Rebecca, you may want to use the chat box.
Yeah, Rebecca, you're, yeah. I do want to hear what you have to say. I just,
yeah,
it's not coming through well. Sounds like a piano. Like,
She just said she'll type.
Okay. So while we're waiting for Rebecca, anyone want to get on? And any other questions? Smith is doing a play. It's not a canceled series. I'm not quite sure what that means. Maybe somebody can help me out on that?
I think the title of the program's play is not canceled.
Oh, okay. Smith Playground. Okay. Smith is doing a play. It's not canceled series. Okay. We're trying to give families activities using materials that they can find in their homes and using small groups. So that seems to be one of the ways forward for a lot of us is, okay, we can't run those big 1,000 people, 500 kid, 300 kid, 60 kid summer camps. So what do we do? How do we take care of our clients and our community? So, oh, and there's the link to Smith Playground. Okay, well, anything else?
As a little reminder for, I guess, everyone out there, I was watching an earlier webinar on businesses and the different aspects of what people are doing to keep their customers safe. And so maybe as we think about camps and recreation centers, and when we start thinking about can we make people keep their masks on and things like that, it's something that perhaps it's a communication aspect with your customers, that you're setting expectations and you're doing things in their best interests. And not everyone is going to like it, but at the same time, it is something that you are putting efforts forward. And it's kind of like that when you had the no shoes, no shirt, no service. It's putting that out there, and you're putting that messaging so that people know what they're getting into, or they're making choices on their own then, as opposed to they get to the door and they realize it and then they're angry. So as long as you're doing things in the best interest for everyone, not just yourself, and you're also communicating those reasons that you're doing things, people are pretty realistic in understanding things right now.
Yeah, I would say you're right. It would be nice to have the backing of your representative government on that, though. That adds some weight to those kinds of decisions, and might be good to see some more of that in the future. The Park Conservancy in Pittsburgh has a mindfulness and meditation map for folks to use in parks. Very good. I'd like to see that. That would be fun, to find areas in your parks where people can go to just be there. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation in this Urban Roundtable. I want to thank especially Heather and Camilla, who I picked on extensively today to keep the conversation going and provide some answers and descriptions for us. So it was really appreciated. Thanks to my partners, Nikki and BK, for your help in putting this all together. And thank you, everyone, for participating. We really appreciate it. We love the feedback. We like to hear your ideas. PRPS is trying to put it all. We're trying to stay in front of these things, first of all, which is really hard with the way information comes out. But we're trying to put it all together and give everyone those kinds of information sources that you need right now. So you guys working with us is great. So everybody, please stay safe, and until the next time, be good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.